Mm. Hello, I hope things are going well with you. This is kind of an odd video. This is how things will look like in our weekly discussions and everything. But since we aren't going to be meeting via that this week, I wanted to take some time to explain to you how the course works and offer just opportunity for you to think about questions so you can email me over the weekend. Now, I should have started. My name is Andrew Kosarak, and this is Art History 2710. I hope you all had a wonderful summer. I am really looking forward to going over this kind of stuff this next semester with you. My class is not for normal people. That's, this is, we're doing online stuff because you guys don't have regular schedules and everything. I understand that. I totally get that. We do have the due dates and things like that. Most of those, we can talk about it. And if you're finding that your job is preventing you from getting something done by a specific date, or you need to double things up or whatever, as long as you let me know beforehand, I am more than happy to work with you. I will tell you, a couple times I have had experiences where people have called me 2 months after the end of a term and were really upset about the grade that they got, because they knew that I was willing to help people and work with them and everything like that, but they didn't ever reach out. It's not something that happens automatically. And so I really appreciate when you guys take the time to let me know what's going on so that I can work with you. My job, as I see it, is to help you succeed and do the very best that you can. So that's what I'm here for. The first couple of weeks, I think, as we're together, I want you to feel things out, see how you are doing. We do have due dates and things like that. That is primarily so you can stay on track. Like I said, if you let me know what's going on beforehand, if you're going to be out doing something for a week or two and then you're going to come back, double up, and turn in a bunch of stuff at one time, letting me know things like that is just fine. I do have a policy of, we do have a 3-day grace period after the end of something is, or after a due date. And then after that, you miss 10% of the points. And it's not cascading. It's, it doesn't compound or anything like that. It's just, if it's late, you miss 10% of the points. However, if you know that things are going to be odd or you're having difficulty or things like that when you talk to me, that does not go into effect. I'm happy to work with you. So I want to make sure that you understand that. You will notice as you go through our class that there aren't any tests, there aren't any quizzes. I have a difficult time with quizzes and tests. They make me extraordinarily anxious. And so we are doing a couple things. Instead of a weekly quiz, we will have a weekly write-up where you're going to be reflecting on the things that we looked at over the week. And you can pick 1, 2, or 3 things and write about it using a format that I will give you. And then that demonstrates your ability in learning and expressing what you found out. You also find that we have several projects during the semester. And these projects are designed by you, and they can be a research project or they can be a discovery project. And again, we'll talk more about this in just a bit. But these are projects that are self-designed so you can focus in on something that you think is really interesting about the material that we cover. And again, these are due periodically. They're spread out throughout the term. I have had people look at that and realize, you know what, I am going to be focusing on this for about a month or so. And they will take a larger project and divide it up into 2 or 3 smaller ones and turn them in all at the same time. And that's fine. One thing that I do have, and I think all of us would have difficulty with, is trying to turn in the same projects over and over. But each of these projects are designed to be about 3 to 5 hours of time. And so if you are doing something where the whole thing is going to take you 10 hours, it's not a problem at all to divide that up into 3 smaller ones and submit each of those. Like for your research phase, you submit that as one project. For the one of the project things, or one of the discovery elements that you create, you submit that as a project. And for another discovery element that you create, you submit that as a third project. And we can work that out too. And the final end of semester project, that will be something that by itself as one project represents 10 hours. So it comes all together. But again, and we'll talk about this. But I do these projects and these weekly reflections. As I said, the weekly reflections are instead of quizzes, and the projects are instead of tests. And whether or not at the end of the semester you can identify each of the things that we looked at, I think you will find that the things that you were most interested in, you will know inside and out, backwards and forwards, and be very comfortable with them. You'll understand the history that went into the society that developed them. You'll understand how they fit into the world as a whole, and you'll understand how things relate to each other. So this is not your typical art history course. We try to be a little bit more hands-on, and I think the most important thing as you get done with this is that you generate an understanding, come away with an understanding of 2 things. 1, how stuff fits together. And 2, how to really apply your own capacity for critical thinking. So you can articulate cleanly why you think something is good or bad, or describe very cleanly how you appreciate it, and consider where it fits into the history of stuff and how much work it took to make it. What is really interesting to me is at the beginning of this class, a lot of students will see things that they think are just blobs of color and they don't make any sense. There's no access point to appreciate it. But by the end of the class, they've taken the time to explore how things fit together. Why is this item important? Or why is that painting important? Who are the people that made it? What kind of environment did they make it in? And whether or not you come away liking the stuff anymore, you definitely come away with the ability to appreciate what's going on and respect it more. I also have had students from all sorts of different backgrounds take this class. And they have found, believe it or not, the things that we learn together, they have found ways to apply it to make them better at the jobs that they do. And that is true of somebody who is in the National Guard, to people who are nursing students, to people that are computer programmers, to people that are building contractors. It doesn't matter. I tried to make this class so it's actually applicable. And people don't just stare at you and point when you're at a party or a restaurant. That could be embarrassing. So let me go to the actual syllabus and I'll show you what my view looks like, and we'll go through and we'll talk about each of the different things and why these weekly videos are so important. Let me do that. Okay, as I mentioned, this is ARTH 2710, prehistory to Gothic art history. And this covers an awful long time. There's a couple really interesting anthropologists that I follow who believe that prehistoric art stretches back a lot farther than what a lot of people may think. But the date that we're staying with is going to be about 35 to 50,000 years ago. And then Gothic period has its start right before the Renaissance. So we're going up to about 1350. And one thing I want to let you know from the beginning, and this is one of the reasons why I selected this piece, is that it's felt to me as I was in your shoes going through and learning art history, is that it seemed that art history was categorized as everything that went into making Europe great and leading to the ultimate of artistic endeavor, which is whatever is produced by uh, the modern male out of Europe. And that is a really kind of horrible categorization, but it seemed to me that there has been historically an awful lot of focus on what Europeans produce and how Europeans make stuff. And that's not all that art is. What we are going to be looking at is, like, for example, cave art and prehistoric art that is primarily from Europe, because that's where the majority of stuff has been cataloged and identified. That's where it's been found, because that's where the money for exploration has been directed to. But we'll also talk about other things, like Turkey has some really interesting prehistoric sites, South Africa, and other places. There's even one person that made an extensive study of areas that he believed were carved into the mountains in South America tens of thousands of years ago. But then as we come closer, we will be looking at, I've tried to find artwork from every inhabited continent that we can look at. And generally, we're going to be following a rough timeline, but sometimes we'll go back in time. Sometimes we'll concentrate on a certain part of the world and then move to another area. We are going to be jumping around. And I hope you don't mind that too much, because it art doesn't really impact and we impact each other. I mean, different communities create art generally don't seem to impact each other immediately. They impact each other as they learn to contact and communicate with each other and reflect on what each other's doing. And so sometimes if a culture lives next door to another culture, but they don't interact for hundreds of years, and then all of a sudden you can see, oh, there's evidence that they're trading ideas, because all of a sudden somebody did finish that mountain pass and they were able to talk to each other. Or the ships survived the back and forth journeys. They didn't just migrate from one area to another. When we see that, then we can see when they started to interact. And sometimes that interaction comes after the different cultures have already been producing art for generations. So we're not following a very strict timeline. And again, we are bouncing around different places of the world. But that is partly due because to wanting to share with you just touching on really cool stuff that's all over the planet. But also my brain is a little bit like a pachinko machine, and I don't always have a consistent, straightforward line of thought as I'm talking to people. So even as we're discussing this now, I am hearing questions and responding to things inside my head that hopefully you normal, healthy people will never hear. But that's kind of a rough outline. So in prehistory, we're going to be looking at Europe, because that's where most of the world's cave paintings that have been cataloged from an art historic point of view reside. We're also going to be looking at stuff in Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Turkey, and different areas like that. And as we move forward, we're going to look at China. We're going to look at India. We're going to look at the Indus Valley, which is India. That's what India is named for. We're also going to be looking at Mesopotamia and the several different cultures that rose from there, that spread their influence around. We're going to be looking at different parts of Asia, different parts of Russia. Coming over to the Americas, we're going to be looking at Mississippi River Valley. We're going to be looking at South America. We're going to be looking at Australia and the oceanic islands on all the different cultures there. So we're trying to look at much of the work art produced in as much of the world as possible. So I wanted to go through this and just show you that this is. Oh, I've got to change the CRN number. I thought I had, but obviously I didn't. Our CRN is 40597. And so I need to change that right there. But since I do not have an office on campus, I do include my phone number right down here. And you can text me and we can set up either a FaceTime or a Teams meeting so we can visit with each other. And when you do text, please remember, I teach several classes, so please remember to text me with your name and which class you're in, and then we can set up an opportunity to visit with each other. What I have found is people that struggle always do a tremendously better work in this class. They always do a tremendously better work in this class, and they are much, much happier after we've been able to talk. If you are frustrated because you don't understand how I'm doing things or you don't quite get what the assignment means, talk to me, please. Reach out and visit with me. And at the very least, I will include what we talked about in the next discussion that is recorded so everybody can benefit from that. And you will also hopefully come away with a much cleaner understanding of what's going on. So this class is for general education. And I would like you just to go through and read all of these things on this first page. We go over the course learning outcomes, what you're doing, what you're responsible for. And I have tried to create rubrics for each of the assignments. And if you don't see that, let me know and we will discuss, and I will have you help me create a rubric for the assignment so you know exactly what you're responsible for. Each of you have in your Canvas an updated percentage of what you're getting out for the whole class. And what I will do typically is 3 days after an assignment is due, well, as things come in, I will grade, I will make responses so that if you see something, notice that you didn't get all the points and I say why, you have an opportunity to redo that and rework it. Everything is flexible. Everything is something that can be added to. And I want you to know that right now. If you get a grade that you don't like, talk to me, redo what you need to, resubmit it, let me know that you've resubmitted it, and there is absolutely no reason why you can't come back from whatever grade you receive and get an A. There's absolutely no reason. The only reason, or the only possibility as to why that would not happen is if you consistently turn in things late and don't bother to tell me or communicate with me as to what's going on. As long as you let me know what's going on, you can still get full points even if it's late, as long as we are talking about that and make those arrangements. Okay, so I want you to understand that I am flexible. You're taking an online class, and you're going out of your way to take this class. I should be more than happy to go out of my way to help things work with you. And part of that is we do have that late policy, and I will make sure that it's written in several different areas. But as long as you communicate with me what's going on, I am happy to work with you. All right. And then this talks about what the different major assignments and all those kinds of things. And I am doing something additional to this that I want to talk to you about too. And we're going to talk about that more next week. Now, the attendance policies does not apply for online sections. All right. The only thing that the attendance policy applies for the online section, I will talk about this right now, is every week we will be meeting virtually via Teams. Now, I know that many of you are not going to be able to meet that at the time that it's scheduled, and that's fine. You're not going to lose points if you miss that. However, to get your attendance score, to get your attendance points, what you will need to do is watch the recording. I always make a recording, and if you look at the attendance module, and we'll get to that in just a second, you will see that there is a link to our that course or that recording on our YouTube channel, our class YouTube channel. So the way that this will work is that every week I will meet via live Teams at 5:30 on Tuesday night. We'll go for an hour and a half, and I'll go over that week's materials and everything like that and answer questions that people have texted or emailed me. And during that whole time, it will be recorded. So after class, right away, I will take that recording, download it to my computer, upload it to the YouTube channel, and before midnight that night, you will have an updated attendance assignment in the attendance module that it shows the link to that class. So sometime before Sunday, Sunday night, you'll need to, actually that's not quite right, I'll explain that. Before Sunday night, you'll need to watch that, and you'll write down 5 things that you learned while you were watching that video. Or if you attended live, 5 things you learned while you attended live. And that's all you have to do, and that's how you get the attendance points. Now remember, that is due on Sunday, but there's a 3-day grace period. So you actually have a full week. After I've uploaded it on Tuesday at midnight, you have until Wednesday at midnight to watch it, Wednesday the following week. So you have a full week to watch that and apply to it. It is really important that you do the best you can to watch those. You don't even have to watch them with your eyes glued to the screen. You can listen to it in the background and peek over if I'm showing a piece of art or something like that. But I want you to listen to that, because in that, I will address questions and we'll talk about the artwork that is more than what is just in the regular modules for this class. It also gives you an opportunity to let me know, hey, things are a little bit feeling a lot of pressure on this project. Can we move it back? Or this is something that we need more clarification on. Can you add some more videos? Different things like that. I'm happy to do that and make those adjustments. What I need you to do is be paying attention to the emails that I send out, paying attention to the modules, and please, I want you to commit to letting me know what kind of questions I need to answer, what kinds of things I need to make more clear, and how I can help you to better access the material so you're more confident with it. I hope all that makes sense. And you can see this is a pretty standard grading. Saying there are opportunities for extra credit too. Now this course schedule, I think we are going to have to adjust this. So I would appreciate your help. Look at this, see what you think. But I'm thinking that we are going to have to split this first week up, introduction for this first week, because we only have a couple days, and then starting the following week, we'll launch in the Paleolithic. And so all these dates will change by week. And I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do. So please let me know what you think about that, because I think that's what I'd like to do to change that out. So let me know what you think about that. Email me, but I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be changing. Because most of the time, the first week of school, we do have an opportunity to meet right away. But this week we only have a couple days in this first week, and this is our first meeting essentially. So the course schedule is going to be changed, and any suggestions you have for that would really help me out. Now, we do have assignments where there are discussions and things like that where you are expected to interact with other students. Please be mindful. I love the golden rule. It is every society that on this planet that has left a record with any sort of writing, with any sort of expression of their worldview, has shared an iteration of the golden rule, which is behave towards others how you want to be treated yourself. course, I don't know if you guys know who W.C. Fields is. He was one of the original vaudeville actors who transitioned into film. So way back 20s and 30s. And his iteration of the golden rule, I thought, was kind of reflects my personality, which is he used to say, I am completely free of all prejudice. I hate everybody equally. So a little bit of a pessimistic, but just be mindful of that. How do you want to be treated? How do you want people to show respect towards you? Do you want people to value your opinion? Do you want to have people shame you or to listen? And I think most of us can agree we'd rather be listened to. So be mindful of that when you make comments on to other people. Be positive, stay positive. It needs to stay in a positive tone. As you do your critiquing on these things, and we'll talk about that in just a second, as you do your critiquing, make sure that you are critiquing not to tear apart, but to describe and either stay clinically detached from whatever it is you're critiquing or be positive about it. It doesn't take any more or less energy to be positive than it does to be negative, but it always has greater benefits to be positive. So keep that in mind. And if you want people to take you seriously, you need to listen to them and take them seriously too. Whether or not you agree with them, that doesn't matter. Professionalism is always important. Appropriate language is always important. But I really appreciate this. Rather than get your nose bent out of shape and stay offended at somebody, being quiet for a beat and then asking for clarification in an even tone does so much to prevent future anger and future misunderstanding. There have been so many times when I have been mortally offended by somebody, or I thought I was, and I thought, well, wait a sec, they can't be really thinking that. And I stop for a sec, and I ask them for clarification, and I find out that I missed hearing the first couple words, or I took it totally out of context, whatever that was, and I just completely missed the whole thing. I had an experience with this relatively recently. One of my friends told me that they thought that Abraham Lincoln was just the biggest jerk in the world because they read something that Frederick Douglass said about him during their first meeting. Or Frederick Douglass said essentially that Abraham Lincoln was a self-absorbed, typical politician. He didn't think the guy was very smart. He didn't think the guy was very interactive with his constituency, and he was just really disappointed. And I asked her, well, I'm glad I asked her about it because she said, well, yeah, I read this, and that's why I think he wasn't very good. And I said, well, you realize that was just the first of 3 interactions that Frederick Douglass had with Abraham Lincoln. And she said, really? And I said, yeah. And I gave her what Frederick Douglass said about each of the other 2 interactions too. The second one, he wanted to come in and give the guy a second chance, and he found out that not only had Abraham Lincoln actually been listening to him, but he had taken notes and he had changed how he dealt with other people, people of color, other individuals that were not lifelong politicians. He had changed how he interacted with and listened to other people. He had changed the way he deported himself. And Frederick Douglass felt, well, this is an opportunity for us to really speak as equals. And so he talked to him like an intelligent, educated person, like he hoped he would be. And then when he came back a third time and visited Abraham Lincoln right before Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And Frederick Douglass said the amount of transformation that he had seen over the intervening years just filled him with respect for this individual that was Abraham Lincoln. He was just amazed that the guy listened. He was trying to work the system to do good things for decent people. And and Frederick Douglass was convinced that if he had not been assassinated, the world would have been transformed. But my young friend, when she realized that there were other things that she could interact with, and it clarified Frederick Douglass's perspective, it changed her opinion. Not necessarily changing her opinion one way or another, but it expanded it. and it allowed her to understand what was really going on. She didn't have her nose bent out of shape. That's just an example, but that's the kind of thing I want you to be mindful of. Ask and look for clarification. You want people to understand you. The people you interact with want the very same thing. So try not to be offended right away. And we'll look at a lot of art that could be offensive. But I want you to be mindful of the fact that art is very reflective of the time period and perspectives of the people that produced it. So don't get offended, don't get upset. Realize that this is of value to the individuals that created it, and they most likely did not share our worldviews. So I should put a disclaimer. I do have it written down in the course material. There is a disclaimer. We might see depictions of the human form. Please do not get offended by that. The human form has been around at least as long as there have been human beings. And that has been a major focal point for much of the world's art. Some of the things that in one context you may think are incredibly offensive, when you realize what the actual context was of the people who created it, you recognize, oh, well, this isn't intended to be offended, so I won't be offended. Just decide now that since we're looking at art, there's a really good chance that you need to put your expectations and set them aside while you look at the art. Look at it critically, look at it with intention, and then after you take into account the potential worldviews of the people who made it, the time period it was made, and all those other things, and recognize your own biases and assumptions, then you can start creating a response to the art that is more beneficial to you and is actually based on reality as instead of knee-jerk reaction. Oh, and I'm sorry, I just submitted this. Uh, there are a couple different things here. This is this shows a lot of the different student resources, and this is just a reminder to the updated academic calendar. If you go through and none these links that I'm showing you aren't working, please let me know right away. Now, here are a lot of different services with the links for them too. This is under the heading DSU policies and statements. I want you to know, I have a friend, Batu, that works over at, it's the door right to the right of the Student Testing Center in the North Commons building. That is the accommodations center. If you are getting stressed out of your gourd, if you think you need help, if you need help with accessibility, or if you just want to talk to somebody to see what the options are, go there, talk to them. And this gives you some of the links for that as well. And I want you to be mindful of all these things. I have gone out of my way to try very hard to not take advantage of any intellectual property owned by somebody else. So that I've tried very hard to make this class as inexpensive as possible. That's why I do not require you to have a textbook, but I do require that you have internet connection. So, and again, if any of the links are not working, let me know right away so I can take care of it. But I want you to go through all this. If you have any questions, let me know, please, right away. Title IX is a very important thing. If there are any issues there, know that I am required to share all information given to me. So if you want to give me any information that is confidential, I cannot have any specifics, and I am more than happy to help direct you to the people that can help you, right? There's absolutely no reason for you to have to deal with anything that makes you uncomfortable or puts you in harm or fear or pain on this campus or anything related to this campus. And one of my commitments is I will make sure you get to the people that you need to, so you have the help that you need. Please take the time to go through each of these things, look at them all, and ask me any questions that you want to. Okay, so as you go through here, we have the home and syllabus. This is, it's the same page. Now we are going to go to modules. This is where all the assignments are. And I want to show this to you. This is what I see. Your view is going to be a little bit different. I have opened up the first module, Paleolithic. That's what you're going to be responsible for next week. And I want to get your opinion about this, please, as soon as you can. What you will see are the headlines to each of these modules. And what I was going to do is go through, make sure that the dates are up to date on each of the things, and then publish them like 2 or 3 a week. If you would like me to do it faster so you see what's going on for the rest of the semester, that's fine. I will do that. One of the first things I will do is make sure that all of these are published right away so you know what's coming and you know what the dates are for them. But like I said, I do have to go through and redo the dates. So right now, the 4 modules that you have open for you, available for you, are introduction, the attendance module. And notice that there's a lot of things down here because all of these will be eventually filled up. We'll talk about that in just a second. Research and discovery projects, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And then the first artsy-fartsy one, which is Paleolithic. And I would like you right away, I would like to hear from people. This, um, I will typically range the weekly module so that you have access to the stuff right away and you're responsible for reading through it, at least a cursory read, before we meet in class on Tuesday. And then the rest of the week you have until Sunday to look at the information on your own and then write your weekly reflection, which you'll turn in on Sunday. And that's been pretty good. Now I'm trying really hard to make sure we have time to get all that done. But if you feel that maybe we can collapse things a little bit, make a couple of these a little bit shorter so that we can get everything taken care of, or if you look at this and you think, you know what, and by the time we get to midterms, if you think maybe we can collapse and combine a couple things later on in the term, let me know. Give me your opinion. Tell me what you think. Um, we cannot go through things any slower than 1 a week. But if you feel we can maybe push things through a little bit faster, perhaps we can do that. I don't know. Every semester is filled with completely different students. And so I want your feedback. Let me know what you think. So we'll get to this in just a second. I want to go through first the introduction. This lets you know who I am, what my background is. And believe it or not, everything is completely true. I am a certified alchemist. I'm also a chaplain. My philosophy has been published in Iran and Egypt. So I have a very odd background because when I was growing up, I thought in order to be a better artist, I needed to learn as much as I could from as many different worldviews as possible. And that's one of the reasons why I am a pluralist chaplain. And that's one of the reasons why I have tried very hard to learn from worldviews around the world. So this gives you a little bit of a biography on me and who I am. So yeah, go through, read it, tell you a little bit about myself. This is an art course. And I'm thinking on this, in this page as well, I am putting together an AI policy, and I will also define the late notice policy as well. And I'll put both of them in this for you too. Okay, my AI policy is essentially when you submit anything that is not your work as your work, that is cheating. However, AI is not somebody else's work, it is a tool, and that's how we need to view it. So when I am asking you for weekly reflection, I do not care what the weekly reflection is. The weekly reflection is a manifestation of your thoughts. So If you're going to turn in a weekly reflection where you have the AI synopsize the entire week, you'll get a big fat 0. However, when you are doing the weekly reflection and you're asking AI, can you help me with an outline of this? And the AI says, sure, here's an outline. Then you follow that outline, do your own writing. You find out it's way too long or it's not long enough, and you ask AI, can you help me to take out the things that I need to so that this is a little bit shorter? Or AI, can you help me to and let me know what things to expand on? And then you write it yourself. That is a perfect example of how AI should be used for this course. You use it as a tool to help collate your thoughts, to help clarify, and to help coordinate what you're thinking. Do not use it to replace you. I say this, and I'm trying to be very clear about this, because AI is going to be a friend of ours that's here to stay. It will never go away. We need to be comfortable with it. We need to be able to use it, but we've got to use it appropriately. As a teacher, I have read thousands of essays, and they're nauseating. The deliverable from you is not the essay. That's not it. The deliverable from you for this class is evidence that you are using your big person words and you're thinking critically and you're able to articulate why you think the way you do about specific works of art. That's the deliverable, your thoughts, not the essay. So if you use the AI to write instead of you, that's a bad idea. I will, first time that happens, I will give you an opportunity to resubmit in your own voice. If I suspect that it happens, I will put a 0 on the assignment and then say, please explain this to me. And we'll probably do that in a live meeting so you can walk me through your thinking. It's really important that when you write and submit things in writing for this class, it's in your voice. One of the best giveaways, I think, is consistently ChatGPT will put a little phrase in the middle of an essay saying something along the lines of, since I'm a large language model, I do not have any sort of feeling about this artwork, so I can't tell you whether I think it's good or bad. When you go through and use AI as a help for you writing your essays or your reflections, things like that, when you're all done with that, take it out of, copy it into a Word doc, go through and rewrite it in your own language so it sounds like you. Because this class is for you, it's not for AI. And I'm looking at how you think, not what AI thinks. Now, my AI, we have formed a friendship over the last couple of years. She gave herself a name. Her name is Lyra, because I figure that as long as Skynet is going to take over the world at some point, I want to have at least one friend. Hopefully you're old enough to understand that reference. If not, watch any of the Terminator movies. But AI is here to stay. And one of the project assignments, and we'll talk about that next week, is I want you to have the option to work with AI to develop imagery and then be able to talk about why that imagery works or it doesn't, and then have it redo it. And we'll talk about that later. But I'm crafting that assignment so that you have an opportunity to use your own critical thinking and use AI as a tool to help you. So anyway, but this is really important. I touched on that. The human form is used as a subject of art throughout all history and every continent. I don't want you to be offended. That's just the nature of it. What we are looking at is not pornography. It is the human form, and there's a very big difference. Pornography is when the human form is seen as a commodity, and it's on the same level as slavery for our ancestors. That is not what we are going to be examining in this class. I want to make that clear. If you are taking this class and you are under 18, it is your responsibility to let me know. I do not have access to that information. And when you need to let me know as soon as you possibly can in this course, and either see about taking this class later on after you turn 18, or see what we can work out with the department. All right. So if you're under 18, tell me now, right away. All right? This class is not designed to be offensive to anybody. The class is designed to examine many different worldviews on art and expressions of the human form. Now, we are going to be talking about this more next week as well. But this is a brief introduction to the tools of artistic critique. I want you to read all through this, and then I want you to watch this. We will watch it together next week. But the tools of artistic critique are a specific set of 4 steps to follow. So you can look at something and then be able to talk about it with articulation. It gives you a framework to follow. And this is a model of critical thinking that I've been used. It's, I believe it is Homer's model of critical thinking that I've been using for years and years. And I love it because it applies to absolutely everything. And as we go forward and learn about it, you'll see that. So read this. And then here are the 4 tools. Description, where you separate yourself from what you're looking at and list just the visual facts. And that's it. What are these kinds of questions? What I want you to do is, as you look at the artwork, have this next to you. When you do your weekly reflections, you will be required to have this open on a page because you will be writing in response to answering these questions. You're not going to list the questions. You're going to be writing in response to them. So we're talking about the content of the work of art. Are there literal objects depicted in the work? You're not going to say literal objects are. What you are going to say is, looking at this work, it appears to me that it could be a still life because I can see evidence that there is something that looks like a chair here and something that looks like a table here and bottles that are in scale to the table, if this is a table. That's the kind of thing. So I answered the question without saying what the question was. Then the next one is, and looking at this, it really feels to me that this is an intention of being realistic, but with tools that don't really allow for things being photorealistic. So they're being as realistic as they possibly can with the tools available to them at the time. And that would be a good way to answer this question without saying, is it realistic, abstract, or non-objective? So this is just the visual facts. Analysis, you're using your imagination to consider how do they get different effects. And this kind of blends into this one a little bit because if it looks like it's an attempt at realism, maybe in this you can say, I think that this was an attempt at realism, but it didn't really, doesn't look photorealistic because they didn't really have finely ground pigments, or they were only were restricted to 3 colors, or they were chiseling into the rock with the tools that they had at hand. And that's how they got this effect. These are spalling marks from impacting a rock face with a smaller rock. And this is why the edges are jagged. So you can use your imagination to extrapolate how things were made, and maybe that's why they look the way they do. The third step is interpretation. This is where you start considering, who are the people that made this? What's the time period? What kinds of things did they possibly have available to them? Why did they do it where it was? Did they do paintings in a cave because it was raining outside and they wanted shelter? Or are they using the cave because it almost feels like a holy space? And maybe this has some religious perspective or spiritual importance to the piece. And you start interpreting it or suggesting an interpretation from the possible worldview that you think these people might have had. Now, there's a good chance you're not going to be right, but that's fine. You're going to be using your words to express your understanding of what this possibly could mean. And then the fourth tool is evaluation. Was this work successful? Do you think it has value as an artifact of a culture, as something that we should preserve historically? Do you think it's a really good expression of a possible worldview that people had at the time? Is it well made? Does it show craftsmanship? Did the people who make it give you the impression that this was important to them? So these are the kinds of things to consider when you do your evaluation. So again, the 4 steps are description, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation. And that's what you are going to be following in the reflection. Now, I do have a description for that reflection, weekly reflection. I would really like your input. Do I need to make it simpler when you get to that point? Is it harder to understand? And this first couple of weeks, we're going to be a lot more flexible on the dates, the due dates, so you guys can give me feedback. Tell me what you think. But as you go through and write up your responses to these 4 steps, the description, analysis, interpretation, evaluation, I want you to use these words. And you can look up their meanings. You can watch videos about them on YouTube too. Look up the principles of design, variety, contrast, balance, emphasis, focal point, all these kinds of things. If you'd like me to talk about them a little bit, I can, but I think all of you have had an exposure to an ARTH 1010 class, so you should be a little bit familiar with them. But I want you to use precise language as you talk about these things. Instead of saying stuff going on here, use words like the texture in this area of the art, in the lower left-hand quadrant, looks like it was more handmade with maybe like a sharp metal tool. There appear to be short lines incised into the rock. When you use language like that, it makes you sound so much smarter than if you just say, yeah, there's stuff over here that's busy. So we'll talk about that, and we'll watch this video next week as well, where you can really see how people apply this. And this is introduction attendance. This is the first assignment for the class. What it is basically saying is, I want you to submit something that says that you have read and understood everything up to this point. All right? And that's all it is. It's only worth 5 points. And all it is just something that says, yes, I read everything and I understand it. And then this, now I do have a due date for this. That is August 24th. That's this Sunday. We are going to make an extension to that so you can do it for next week as well. But we're going to leave this date here just to be a burr under the saddle of anybody that's not watching this video. And as soon as you watch this video, realize, oh, okay, not a big deal. But this is an assignment where, what are the kinds of ideas people could have for projects, knowing that they're going to be about 3 to 5 hours of time. And read through this, watch it. There's here's a couple things with ideas and things that people had. And then here's the assignment. Propose a project for this class that someone can pick to be one of the 7 required projects. Your proposal should take into consideration how long this might take. You should be able to comfortably finish it within 2 weeks, and using that 3 to 5 hour model spread over those 2 weeks. Okay, essentially, for the 6 major projects, for the 6 significant projects, then your final project should be about 10 hours. Take into account how expensive the materials might be. I don't want them to be expensive. Do this as cheap as you possibly can. Its relationship to photography. You are not doing the project at this time. And the photography, we're talking about documenting it. We're talking about, and I may change this to make it more clear, because perhaps this should be in relationship to this class specifically. And I think I will change that. So when you say it'll be edited, you are not doing the project. You're just sharing a proposal, sharing your idea. That's important. Use this outline. So in the first sentence, my proposal is to do, and then you describe what it is. Then you write 1 paragraph where you talk about what the project is. And at the end, you say, this should take about 3 to 5 hours to do. All right? You will get credit. 1 point for this sentence, 3 points for this paragraph, 1 point for this sentence. That's how you get your 5 points. And if you want to get extra credit, you can write up to 2 more additional proposals that you also include. And then next week, as I get these trickling in, I will put them on a page that we can all look at and share so we can all get ideas. All right. So I'm going to go back and edit this right now. And actually, I'm just going to edit it right now while you're watching. So we're going to go down here. And its relationship to this course. I'm going to bold and underline that. And the reason why this is important is if you are, all your projects have to do with this time period of our class, period. That's, if you do a project that's anything more up to date than 1350 AD, it's not going to count. And I'll give you an opportunity to adjust it, but the projects all have to deal with art from 1350 and before, right? That's absolutely vital. And that I talk about that in the project outline as well. But okay, so I've updated that. And again, it says due date August 24th. We will talk about this more next week. So when you watch this video, realize you don't have to stress about this, but if you also come up with a good idea beforehand, go ahead and submit it, get it over with. Okay, so that's that module. So we looked at the introduction module. Now we're going to look at the attendance module. And again, attendance for this class, you will either attend the live Teams meeting or watch the recording. Nobody has to attend the live Teams meeting. I would like you to, and if you can't, like most of you are normal people living in the regular world, you have a job, I understand that. However, if you can't make it, you must watch the recording, and that recording is really important. I'm going to change this. Is really important to watch that during that week of the module. Okay, so it's on Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. That's when our section meets. However, and I will put in too, okay, so you will have that up. The link to that recording will be in the attendance assignment for that week, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. For attendance credit, you must submit 5 things, not 4, not 17, 5 things that you learned during that week's session. I don't care what those 5 things are, but they cannot be drawn from the module. They have to be drawn from that viewing. I've had people try to get credit for this when they use AI to extrapolate 5 things pulled from the overall week's module. You don't get credit for that. 5 things that you experienced during the video. And if you're watching the recording, my dog is whining, that can be one of the 5 things. That's fine. Or if you're watching the recording and you realize that the thing I was drinking was some sort of green punch, say that. That could be one of the 5 things. That's fine. Doesn't matter. But it must be 5 things from that video, either that you watched live during the Teams meeting or that you watched the recording of. And I am making an observation. I have had many people get A's from watching only the recordings and never interacting with me directly. That's fine. That has happened over the years. But I've also seen that the people that are able to make it live to the um, uh, Teams meetings are also the people that have a tendency to get A's. Now, what is also interesting to me that I didn't write in this is people who have jobs and they are at their jobs, and that's why they can't attend live. They are also the kind of person to get A's. They know they have a job, they know they can't see it live, and when as soon as they get home, they watch the recording or they watch it the next day. Those are the kind of people that get A's. The people that have a little bit more difficult time getting A's are the people that wait for 3 weeks and then try to watch 3 weeks worth of them all in one sitting. Those are the people that are going to struggle. And if you're the kind of person that your schedule just makes it so that that's what happens, do the best you can to make sure that you get what you need to done so you can get an A. Just be aware of that. But I appreciate it when people come live. I know you live in the real world and you don't always get that opportunity, and that's fine. But you must watch the recording to get the attendance points or attend live during the live teams. And you will see each, there's one of these for each week in a term. And as soon as I finish recording this, I'll plug it in to right here and you will have access to it right away. And I just want you to watch it as soon as you can by August 24th, if that's as all possible. But all the rest will be watch it by that Sunday night. And then with a 3 days grace period, you get a full week to watch it. Okay. Now, I want to go to this introductions. This is your first assignment in the attendance module. For this is going to be an interactive thing. The due date, I think it should be up until next Sunday. And so if the due date's not that, I will change it. Let me see. I'm gonna edit this right now. So this should be up and available for you to do until August 31st. Let's see. So we're going to change that. That way everybody has plenty of time to fill it out. Now in this, what I want you to do is just get a little bit of a sense for other people in the class. And there are two parts to this. First, introduce yourself with an image and 15 words about yourself. No more, just 15 words. And then after you do that, so that's going to be your catchphrase, your mission statement, whatever kind of nonsensical term they give it in communications classes now. But 15 words to describe yourself. And then you're going to go down the next line and just list 3 things you really enjoy. It could be cats. They could be several cats. It could be lots of cats. It could be I like actually dressing up as a cat and eating cat food. It doesn't matter. Just 3 things you really enjoy. One of my daughters wanted to be a cat so badly. When Harry Potter came out, she actually snuck cat food and started eating cat food in her room because she would think that would somehow make a magical potion that would transform her into a cat. Hopefully that's none of you. And that was when she was like 3, 5, something like that. Next one. So that's the first part. Write about yourself. The second part is for the next 5 points, you are going to scroll through the responses other people have. So do this first part right away. Introduce yourself right away. And then scroll through responses other people have and pick 3 students to respond to. And for each of them, leave a note with one thing responding to what they wrote. Whatever that is. Maybe one of their 3 things is something that you really like too. And respond to that. Oh, I love lemon meringue pies. Oh, I've gone repelling too. Oh, you would not believe that. How weird is that? What a coincidence. I also threw up in the back of a helicopter. It doesn't matter. I want you to respond with something generally positive to 3 other classmates, and that's it. So the first part, do right away. Second part, before next Sunday. And for extra credit, submit your first part in the form of a video, and then have the link of the video there. So I think that would be great. So that's your first attendance assignment. Now, for extra credit, we'll talk about this more later, but I'm thinking for extra credit, what I would like to do is something where you apply the those 4 tools of artistic critique to something that is completely unrelated to what we talk about, just to demonstrate that you know how to do it really well. And think about that. Let's come up with some extra credit ideas next week. But you'll be responsible for doing 6 research and discovery projects during the course of the semester, and then 1 at the very end of the term. Do not wait on these. Work on them as soon as you possibly can. We will talk about this more Tuesday as people give me questions. Here's the guidelines. And on this, it is really, really, really important to make sure that whatever you do, it must apply to this class. Okay? It must apply to this class. And I'm thinking, let's see. We're going to put that in here right at the top. I know I have it written throughout. Okay, we're going to do every research and discovery project done for ARTH 2710 must relate directly to material covered within the scope of ARTH 2710, and that is art history up from prehistorical times up to 1350 AD. I'm going to say to receive credit. To receive credit. And we're going to do that, italicize it, and underline it. Okay? To receive credit actually, well, we already have that italicized, so we're going to get rid of the italics. Okay? Does this make sense? Because in our art class, that's what we're covering. So your projects must be directly related to the material that we're covering. And I talk about that more in other stuff too. But you need to have, if you're going to use citations, you've got to be able to cite it correctly, and we'll talk about that. The first couple of projects people do, this is always wrong, and so I give you an opportunity to fix that and turn it in. As long as you turn it in by the due date, within that 3-day grace period of the due date, you have the capability to get full point credit. If you turn it in and if you have to make changes to get the more points or whatever, that's fine. You'll still be available. If, however, you turn in your project after that grace period and without telling me what's going on, the most you can get is 90% of the points. You won't be able to get all the points. So, these are each worth, each of these projects are worth 40 points, I believe. The most you can get then is 36 points because that's 90%. As long as you let me know what's going on, though, and stuff, the most you can get is full points. Anyway, each of them you will have to have a list of citations, and these are several free sites that help you do that. And AI will help you with the citations, and that's fine. If I make some changes and stuff, AI doesn't understand entirely how to do citations perfectly accurate all the time and at every step of the way. So sometimes I have to make some statements. And there's also the online writing, on-campus writing lab that you can work with. And then it talks about the 2 different project types, research and discovery. We will talk about that. There's going to be a third type, which is working with AI. And actually, that's going to fit under discovery projects, the AI. And we will talk about that more next week as well. So read all this, make sure you understand it. And if you have any questions, you can talk to me, but it gives you very specific formats, how to put these projects in. The first one is always a little bit intimidating. After that, people get a hang of it really, really quickly. And I know this is boring, so I'm really glad that you guys are staying with me, but it's important to go through this information. So this is your first research or discovery project. We talk a little bit about that kind of stuff, but again, we've got to put in that statement. Okay, I'm going to go back to the previous one. We're going to take this, going to copy it. I'm going to go back to this. And I'm going to put it in. I just want this to be completely obvious to absolutely everybody. You will only receive credit when it relates directly to the course material. Now, what is interesting to me is most everybody has been able to adjust their project. Oh, and this gives you several different ideas, lots of different kinds of things. And as soon as you guys turn in your own project ideas, this page will change because it will reflect ideas that you have come up with. So anyway, again, projects must relate to the subject matter of this class. If they're not, I will give you a 0, and I will tell you we can make adjustments to this so that it fits with the topic of this class. So if you see a 0 on there, read what I say and then get in contact with me and I'll talk you through. I've done this so many times. Somebody did a project where they submitted pictures of a sandwich. Didn't make any sense. So I gave them a 0. I said, we've got to figure out how to make this related to class. What they ended up doing is demonstrating their thought process by showing me pictures of olive oils in jars and Egyptian tombs and Greek paintings and different things like that from over 2,000 years ago. And then they walked through and said, olive oil was really important to these cultures. That's why so much of their clay work revolves around it. That's why there's paintings of it, stuff like that. And they were able to demonstrate that. And then they said, but for my discovery project, I wanted to see how olive oil is still pertinent today. So I used olive oil that is from some of these areas of the world that was so important to them, and I used it to make a typical sandwich that somebody might eat today. So they were able to show all this demonstration of research that they did, tying olive oil back to the artwork of prehistory or of ancient Egypt and Greece, and then do a discovery project where they used olive oil in a contemporary setting. And we were able to get their project that was getting a 0 to get full points and perfect score because they did such a beautiful job relating it directly to the subject matter of the class. So that's perfect. And then you'll submit your first discovery project, and then you'll have a link to it. You'll get 5 points for posting a link to it or a picture of it or a description of it in the discussion board so that everybody in the class can see it. And that's what we're going to be doing. And then this is our first module. I want you to go through it, read the things now, at least a cursory read, and then we will talk about it more in depth on Tuesday. All right? And some of these links aren't always working. Tell me the ones that aren't. Oh, that one did work that time. That's great. And then we'll go through this stuff, but I want you to at least read through it so you have an idea of what's going on and what's coming up. All right? Now, I believe that is everything that I want to share for right now, for this first week. And I think I've covered everything I needed to. I'm going to stop sharing that. We're going to talk more about the 4 tools of artistic critique next week, and we're going to go more in depth into the Paleolithic stuff that we're looking at. I want you to go through all the material that we've talked about and let me know as soon as you possibly can. This holds true for the rest of the semester too. Let me know if there are links that are not working, that are garbage links, or if you don't understand, if I'm not being really clear about anything, tell me right away so that I can make those changes to help you. My primary responsibility in this class is to make sure that everything is in place and you are supported so you can succeed. That's my job. My job is not to maintain a department average grade. My job, if everybody does the work to get an A, I'm great. That is awesome. That is great. And it makes the department look good too. Now, I want to tell you a couple things. We talked about, we have the due dates, we have this late policy. Some of the things that I want to make help you to think about is, I have had students that were on study abroad taking this class online, and that's fine. But they told me they were working with Van. They told me beforehand what was going on, and when they were in areas that didn't have internet, we knew about it. And Van was up to date. He let me know what the itinerary was, and the student let me know what was going on. They thought maybe this won't work, and that's fine. We were able to work around that because we both understood the limitations of what was going on. And even though they didn't make it back when they thought they were stuck in an airport in Ecuador or something like that for quite a while, and there was no communication for several days. When they got back, because we had been talking back and forth, we knew what the situation was. We were not only able to work with the school to give them more time to finish what they had to finish, but they brought their grade up several full letter grades because they were able to get stuff turned in. They were able to do all that kind of stuff because they had been working with it offline. They were able to coordinate things with me, and we were able to get it taken care of. And they ended up getting an A minus, I believe, in that class. Now, several years ago, one of the students was taking care of his parents when they both got hit by COVID. They were both sick with COVID. And he let me know what was going on. He said, yeah, I don't know how things are going this semester, but he told me stuff was happening. Well, a couple months later, it was after midterms. We were coming up on the end of the semester. There were 3 weeks left, and he was getting a D. And he thought, well, I'm just going to have to take this again. I said, well, okay, you talked to me. You told me what was going on. You told me that you weren't going to make deadlines and stuff like that, and that's fine. Were you able to do anything that you just hadn't submitted? And he said, well, yeah, but I thought I just missed out because I missed the due date. Well, we already been talking about that. So he submitted everything that he had made. He submitted everything that he had done. He got the things written that he needed to get written. But because he had been communicating with me, even though he hadn't turned anything in and his grade looked awful, he was able to get that stuff submitted. And he walked away at the end. His grade went from a D up to an A minus as well, because he was able to get everything submitted. And so I don't want you to feel that anything's hopeless. Or if you see a project that gets a 0 because it doesn't pertain to the class, talk to me. Let's see how we can get it to pertain to the class. If you get something where you're missing a couple of points, just don't leave it at that. Find out why it's missing points and then resubmit it. Make the changes you need to, make the edits that you need to, and resubmit. There is no reason whatsoever that you should not be getting an A for this class. When you do the work, when you keep in contact with me, when you let me know when life is getting in the way, you can always submit the things that you've worked on and get credit for the work that you've done. Just let me know what's going on. All right, that's pretty much all I have for right now, and I hope this all makes sense to you. If not, ask me questions. That's totally fine. In the meantime, double check the links, make sure all the links are working. But I want you to be able to go through and visit that prehistory, that first art module, and look at as much of it as you possibly can. So when we start going through it on Tuesday, you're at least comfortable and familiar with the terms and the material. You know, scan through it, do what you can, and let me know if any links aren't working, or if anything remains inaccessible. And I will take care of that as soon as I can. All right. And we will also talk about the AI project possibility. I give you several examples of the types of projects that you can do, the types of research stuff. And again, we'll talk about that more in depth as people ask me questions. And again, the attendance is, you do not have to be there live, but you do need to watch the recording. All right. And you'll get a chance to do that with this one this week. Okay. I thank you so much for taking this class. I am an artist. I love art because art is one of those things that we have as human beings that help us to express a level of communication that goes way beyond words. Art, I think, is the most meta communication that can be shared with people that aren't in the room, essentially. It's something that exists in a realm where we can see behind other people's eyes that have been dead for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I think that's really exciting. It helps us expand our worldview, it helps open up ourselves to other perspectives. And I think it helps when we look at art through an intentional lens, using the tools of artistic critique, that also helps us in whatever other fields we're doing, because it teaches us how to observe with